What's up gamers, DreamcastGuy here, reviewing today Metroid Samus Returns. Unfortunately, I don't have a 3DS capture card, so I'm just gonna have to tell you about how interesting this project is. So let's dig into the good and the bad of this remake. The Metroid series has been almost dormant for the last 10 years. We've seen very little of Samus and her adventures, and so because of that, it seems like Nintendo wants to bring her back, but they don't want to just throw us into this next big sequel. Instead, they made the smart choice of remaking the Gameboy classic Metroid II, a game I actually grew up with. I was a really big Game Boy kid, so because of it, my parents would buy me any little adventure that got high ratings, and this one is a masterpiece, but it does have some flaws. It looks like they're really going into the roots of it and keeping what worked about this, but introducing all new elements, crazy graphics of course, and a new control style that includes some hardcore melee combat. The story opens with news of the Metroids getting to Earth, and humanity starts freaking out. They've never dealt with the threat of this galactic scale before, so they know that they have to treat it seriously. They send in their most deadly weapon, Samus Returns, to take out all of them before it's too late. This is actually my favorite part about the game overall. I've beaten all the Metroids, and I feel like they never really focus on the fact that Samus is a bounty hunter. Her job is to hunt and kill the most deadly stuff ever, and here, that is actually the main focus. At all times when you're playing, it has a giant counter at the bottom of the screen of the number of remaining Metroids left. You've been dropped on this planet with the single mission of wiping out all life. You need to kill this before it can actually kill you, and that's the only real goal. Every single time you kill one, you see that counter go down. You know that you're a little bit closer from getting to leave this hellhole, and I like that. Since we're playing as the most trained soldier in the universe, we actually get a lot of skills to help us defeat these things, starting with the fact that there's an all-new control style. Mostly, I think the biggest alteration is the aiming. Now, whenever you're holding L, you can actually select targets. It makes it where as you're holding it down, you get free aiming. You can aim in any direction. This includes when you're hanging off ledges. I like this because now we have a lot more tools for trying to fight off these monsters. When you're stuck and you're really low on life, I like that I can actually hang out and be as careful as I want. And another tool that helps this is the melee. Whenever targets are about to charge you, they'll flash. They'll have this little sparkle. And if you tap R right as that happens, you'll actually uppercut them, stun them for a second, and allow you to get a critical hit. Not only that, but when you make contact with them, they'll release a couple little health points, which you can absorb to get extra life and help fight them off. It's a mechanic that makes it where when you're super close to death, you actually have a better chance of making it to the next checkpoint. It's fair because it's still not super easy. And with how hard this game actually gets, you will need to use this mechanic a lot. There were so many occasions where I was about to go against a boss, I knew it was right through the next door because my Metroid alert was going off, but I was at like 2 health. So because of it, I could carefully creep back through the previous couple areas, shoot a couple Metroids, absorb all that health, and go up and take on the next boss. It's a mechanic that really makes it where the pacing is as fast as you need it to be, but you can also still get overwhelmed if you're trying to just rush it. There are a lot of visual cues now that are very subtle but work well. Clearly MercurySteam, the developers of this, were hardcore focused on making sure the art was good. This could be the introduction to the series for a lot of people. That's a little bit surprising, but think about all the millions of people who own a 3DS but might not have owned previous Nintendo consoles. This is going to be their introduction to the Metroid franchise, and it's a great start at it. It makes it where you understand the Metroid threat, you understand how they can be defeated, and most of all, you understand Samus' set of skills. This brings me to the best aspects of the game, but also where we start to run into some flaws. The talents we get in this game are fantastic. When you first land on this planet, you're quite weak. While you're strong enough to fight stuff off, you don't have your morph ball ability yet, you can't do anything super special. But as you begin to progress in here and collect stronger DNA, you yourself become stronger in the process. You absorb abilities from your enemies, which give you access to new areas and solutions solutions to new puzzles, but there is something that I didn't really care for. To make sure people wouldn't be completely put off by the difficulty of this game, there are some abilities that make things stupid easy. Namely, there's like an echolocation talent now. There's this extra little mana bar that your character gets, and by using that, you can actually unlock a huge portion of the map. When you press up and A, you'll shoot out this giant sonar signal that shows you every hidden spot on the map. Literally every hidden spot. Even little secret blocks that normally would be a fun surprise to discover, those will actually blink. It'll show you, hey, there's a secret over here. If you get lost, you can also use this ability to see through walls and know what's on the other side of stuff. It'll reveal every tiny little detail of the map, and I don't really care for that. Metroid II, in my opinion, was always about being lost. It was about dropping onto this planet, being completely clueless, figuring out where the threat was, and neutralizing it. Being able to just literally send out this huge energy beam and know where everything is, it feels a little bit too simple. I feel like it removes part of the challenge needlessly. But I do think that some of the other skills that use this same new magic bar are actually interesting. Namely, there's one which makes your suit covered in electricity. This makes it where you can have a defensive skill that's constantly absorbing it, and it makes it where if you start having trouble against some of the enemies that are a lot more in your face, you can fight them off easier, and that actually felt like a good balancing choice, whereas the echolocation stuff felt like a bit too much. I also think that at times there's a bit too much repetition. A lot of areas you go into and there will be this giant altar that'll say, okay, you need to kill 8 or 10 Metroids in order to continue. Then you just walk around that entire zone, collecting the DNA, go back to that altar, plug it in, and it'll open up the next door. I don't really like this because it feels very hand-holdy in my opinion. Constantly being trapped in these tiny little spaces, solving this one big problem and then moving on, it feels a little bit too structured. I've always loved the Metroid games that are the most hands-off. You know, my personal favorite is Metroid Fusion because it almost feels scary at times. Dealing with this evil threat in the darkest spots of the galaxy, not knowing that anybody can help you, it's such a great feeling, and I don't think that Samus gets that. This one, I mean, Samus Returns is a bit more about just the plain-out fun, the cool shiny graphics, and having a good time. It's a fantastic introduction to the series, but I hope that more people move on from there and try out some of the other interesting 2D entries. Overall, I think that this game is pretty dang great. Even if this turns out to be one of the last major 3DS games, it's a great ending to such a phenomenal handheld. But now that we've talked about some good and some bad, let's go over to the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Metroid Samus Returns an 8.5 out of 10. If you're someone who still has a 3DS or a 2DS laying around, this game is something you should definitely pick up. It's just so interesting. Even as somebody who beat the original game like 15 times, I was still surprised by so many of the interesting aspects of this. I'll be playing it again just to make sure I get every single unlockable. Well, this has been DreamcastGuy with another review. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, share with your friends, and subscribe if you haven't already. But do me the biggest favor of all and keep dreaming. There was like 4 trucks driving past while I was filming this, so I'm sorry if you heard that. I'm sorry. I repeated my lines, but sometimes you just can't edit past that many trucks. Oh, hey. I was just playing a little bit of Grand Theft Auto on my Darth Vader PSP. Are you curious what I'm going to come out with next? Well, if you click this button, you'll be subscribed to be the first to know. Also, if you click over here and here, you can see my latest review and my latest top 10. I promise, it was super good. Or it was really bad, and I'm sure you can just make fun of me in the comments. Either way, it'll be a lot of fun. Thanks so much for watching.